Hello and welcome to Laserfiche Forms Training by Cities Digital. This video will introduce the basic concepts and features of Laserfiche Forms. Laserfiche Forms is its own forms server and will work in its own server environment, but it can be connected to the Laserfiche server and send documents into the server. It does use user accounts that are in Laserfiche servers for configuration though. The Laserfiche Forms system functions for various purposes, mainly to provide forms web-based tasks for users to interact with and view. The system also allows administrators to create e-forms, both creating the forms and the underlying processes. Administrators can create and view reports. Those reports can be provided to end users for their viewing, and the form system can be configured to send forms into the Laserfiche repository. The benefits of using Laserfiche Forms is that it is very easy and simple to use for the participants. Also, it's very simple and easy to use and configure for the administrator, and provides a consistent interface. How do you get to forms? Usually you'll use a URL in your web browser, but you could have been emailed a link to a form to fill out. You might even interact with forms via email response only. Forms can also be embedded in existing web pages. There is the ability to create a start page that is accessed through a web page designed by Forms, and Laserfiche's mobile app will support the use of Forms as well. Forms can generate all kinds of output. Form itself, you can generate tasks so that users have tasks that they view as a form, and then they press their submit or reject buttons. The forms themselves can be pushed into Laserfiche as a TIFF or PDF. If the form has any attachments, those are automatically indexed, and they can be stored in the Laserfiche repository as well. The form is intaking data, and that data can be sent to Laserfiche as well, just as data, or used in workflows. And that being said, Laserfiche Forms and Workflow will work together. Workflow can send information to Forms, and Forms can send information to Workflow. An example might be to fill out a fillable PDF from data captured off of a web form. Or, for example, we could use Laserfiche Forms to send data from a filled out form on the web form that then pushes that data to another database or to another application. So our agenda here is to take a look at launching forms. We'll look at the user inbox. We'll then go ahead and create a new process, at which point we'll design a new form. We'll configure the form's theming, build a little bit of a process of that form as to how it routes to various users. We'll then publish that form. And that being said, let's get started. All right, having browsed to our forms server /forms URL, we then are taken to a sign-in page. We'll type our username and password, and we'll sign in. Immediately upon sign-in, we'll be taken to the My Tasks tab and to Open Tasks. This user that we see logged in up at the top right corner has rights to see the inbox and start processes. This user also is an admin, therefore they also see the design, manage, and monitor options, but a typical user may only see reports, start process, and inbox. Regardless of the user type, most users will have tasks to deal with. A task is really just a form that was filled out and was submitted and ended up in their in-basket. Open tasks are where you find most of your tasks. If you are a team member, you might click on the team tasks and look at Unassigned Tasks. As a team member, you can select one or more tasks and assign them to yourselves. If you're a team manager, you could even assign that task to somebody else. While here, you can set your due dates on the tasks, set them with priorities, and even change the column display as you see here. We'll go ahead and assign this additional expense reimbursement task to ourselves. We'll go back to our My Tasks list, and now we can see that we have 2 open tasks instead of just the one that we had seen previously. You can change your column view by clicking on the column display button, which then allows you to select and then reorder the columns in the display. If you have any tasks that you've started filling out, that you did not complete, they are available in the drafts area. Unassigned tasks, as we can see, because we're also a team member, it just mirrors the team tasks items. And if you have completed any tasks or been a part of a task or process that you've interacted with, you'll see those listed here. We're going to go back to the Open Tasks list. And since we have one available to us, we'll just take them in order. To open that task, go ahead and click on the blue hyperlink. That'll open the task in another window. You'll see the form and the data in here. If you want to save it as a draft, click the Save as Draft button up at the top right corner. You can also, again, release this back to a team member or reassign it to somebody else. Again, you can set the due date and priority as well. If you review the form and you see that everything is appropriate, you can fill out an additional set of comments, especially if you're going to send this form back as a revision. So you have the option here to send back for a revision, in which you probably should be putting comments in here. You can approve the request or just cancel it outright. If you look on the far right side here, we have the initial submission by this user. The current user is reviewing this process as part of the approval by supervisor stage. And the user can then click approve, which at that point, that task is then handled, sent off to the next person for their action. Your open tasks are now just left with one instead of two, and you can continue processing those tasks. You'll notice there are several columns in your task list. You can filter these processes by any available options. Choose one or more to filter by. You can filter on any column. Due date's always handy, especially when you want to search by ranges or particular due dates or no due date. Very handy. These columns are sortable as well. By clicking on the column name, you can sort ascending or descending. So you can see for an end user, it's very easy to use Laserfiche forms. You're just interacting with an e-form, and that's it. How do you start an e-form? You click on the Start Process, and you fill it out by selecting an available e-form. Each user will have one or more e-forms that they could start with. Not everybody sees the same thing. If you want to submit a vacation leave request, click that Start button. The user is then taken to that form, fill out all the fields that are required, fill in anybody you need. You can fill in the fields on the form, add any additional comments, and then click Submit. The form will check for missing information, and it then presents you with a thank you message. When you close that form, you're taken back to the Start Process box. An end user may find that their submission has come to their inbox, and especially when you're testing, you might find that that request has come in. And we now see that that request came in as well. And again, users or administrators will want to take action on these form tasks as soon as possible. Forms let you create reports as well. If you click on the tab at the very top, reports are available. You can view existing reports or create new ones. Forms users will see forms in their Forms Reports area if they've been granted access to a report, or if you're a process admin or system administrator. Forms reporting is available for custom reports. You can build schedules for those reports, which then result in saved snapshots. You also have some pre-built operational reports that are automatically created by the form system for every process that is built. Custom reports can be created by clicking on the Create New button. Choose the type of report that you want, highlight that, then click Select. Then set all the particulars as far as that report goes. Choose the process. Maybe we want to see expense reimbursement information. We'll select that particular process. Give it a report name. Who is it visible to? Maybe users or groups. Give it a new title here. Click Next. The table can be sorted by instance ID, and you can add additional columns for display. Click the plus down here and add the information, both from the form information or the form fields itself, maybe the date submitted. Once you've set your columns, click Create, and the report will be visible. Each report is editable, and you can also save a snapshot by looking at that report. The buttons up at the top right allow us to create a schedule for this report. You can even download the report and set access to these reports so that other users can see the same report because they do not initially have access to that report. Clicking back on the main reports page, if you do have saved snapshots, those will be visible as a list. These are point-in-time reports. They are not updatable, but they can be sent for viewing by other users via email. You also have the ability to see any report schedules that are currently set. And you can create new schedules for any reports you desire. As you can see, your frequency can be set for several different options at a particular time. Email notification can be set as well. Operational reports will be built for every process that you have created. As you can see here, each report will tell you some basic information about the processes. How many have run, how long it took for them to complete, and various other information. Operational reports can tell you at a glance progress of all submitted forms, task distribution, and performance by user and/or team, and more. You can choose to view by task or instance, by the status of the task, add a date filter. Each of the displayed items can tell you how many were submitted and in what stage, the average duration of those stages, and much more. Having taken a look at items that are in the inbox, starting processes, and viewing reports, presupposes that you've built a process already. If your form system has just been installed, you won't have any processes in place, and you'll need to build them from scratch. To do that, one would click on the Manage button. In this demo system, we actually have quite a few pre-built forms processes, but if your system is new, you would see nothing here, and you would want to create a new process. The option is available to upload an existing process that might have been sent to you as a pre-built component, or you can choose to create a process from scratch. The new Process Designer wizard allows us to create processes from blank. We can create a basic form submission. We could start with a basic form approval. One of my favorite is to upload a pre-built form. And you can also use Laserfiche's Business Process Library, which is a collection of pre-built forms templates, including e-forms and their underlying processes, and a whole lot more, and sometimes even including reports. Let's take a look at our Business Process Library. It's a much more complete option, and with your installation of Laserfiche Forms, you get over 100 pre-built templates. So as you can see here, you have a big list of templates of all kinds of different forms, different types of categories. You can sort by categories over here on the left-hand side or by industry specific. Notice also that each one of these templates has a complexity level, and some of them even have a trending mark. If we scroll back up, we go ahead and we can sort by alphabetical, complexity, or trending. Let's see what's trending here. Employee exit review, flu shot registration, perfect for this time of year. And if you click on any one of these templates, you'll get a preview. That preview will show us some screenshots, one of the flow of the process itself, from submission to user to ending of the task. It'll give us a preview of the form itself that will be filled out by users. And it'll also show us a summary of the details of that process. On the right-hand side, we get a description of the process itself, It'll tell us how many participants are in this particular forms process, and if it has any submissions to the Laserfiche repository, it'll tell us about that as well. You'll notice two green buttons up at the top. We can import the process altogether, but we also should check to make sure that there aren't any workflows or briefcases to set up prior to building this form. If we take a look at the download files, it is giving us a briefcase. This would be a briefcase that we import into the Laserfiche repository, and that would create a folder structure and possibly even pre-build a template and fields so that we can map those fields from forms into Laserfiche. Once you've done that, go ahead and click on the import process, and the process will be loaded up. We'll give it a name. We'll give it a new title, and we'll wait for it to load up. Once you've selected and downloaded your business process template, the Forms Designer screen will present the process diagram. The process diagram really just consists of events and tasks that happen in sequence from initial submission of that form, which we see here, it's signified by the green button. The decision is to send it on to a user, and that user may have various responses to that. If they accept the form, it will send an email notification. That notification will then be followed by a save to repository action here in this process, and then the task ends. The process diagram can be built with all kinds of activities. They're listed here on the left-hand side of the process diagram in this main process view. If you are familiar with all these tasks and activities, you can minimize the view and just use the icons. If you're new to Laserfiche Forms, go ahead and expand that activities view so that you can add these items. You just click and drag your particular task onto the canvas here and assign it to the next step. Each of these steps is connected by a process line, and if you don't have process lines going to the next step, your process will end and probably throw an error. You might notice at the top there are various titles up here. The form submitted versus flu shot request versus some of the other stages here as well. Notify employee, etc. These are stages, and these will show up in your summary as to where the process is. These are helpful for doing things. Now, you'll notice the really great thing about Laserfiche Forms is they add annotations about what's going on in each one of these activities. Many of them are self-explanatory, but some of them really do help understand what this process is. So this process diagram is really the logic and the flow of that form that's submitted. But you're asking, well, where's that form? Over here on the far left side, we actually can take a look at the flu shot request form itself. So we'll go over here, click on that. That'll bring up the form designer that allows us to take a look at the form itself. And that form has a lot of text here initially at the very top, but you can add all kinds of fields and different field types to this form. We can add any other field types as well. Just drag and drop onto the form screen. Each field can be edited. Click on the field itself. You'll notice it turns blue. Click on the Edit button, and you'll need to scroll down a little bit in order to see more information, but you have the field label. You have the variable name, which will automatically be assigned if you don't assign one yourself. You can make these fields required and read only. You can add text above or below the field, and for radio buttons, you might change the layout. In this case, this one was one column, but you can change it to side by side or any column number available here. You can assign your choices and even add an other choice here by selecting that. You can even make a default value. If everything looks okay, go ahead and click Done. Scroll down and make sure that the rest of your form looks appropriate. Lots of text has been added here. The text that we see here was added by using the custom HTML field. It allows us to format the information. This insurance provider field actually is a radio button, but has lots of text above it. And if we hit Edit, we can see that the text above the field was entered, so it shows up on that field. Hit done there. If you want to see what your form looks like, go up to the very top of the form and use the preview button. If you have been making edits and you don't like the edits prior to previewing, go ahead and use your undo button. This form, if you like it, can be copied. If you need to start over from a brand new form, you can delete the form, not that I would, and create a new form as well in case this form will be just a starting form. But if you copy this form, you could then use the form as the basis for a new form. There are some settings you might assign to the form. If we click on that, we can make this a responsive layout that works on mobile devices. Since Laserfiche Forms can be used with your Laserfiche app on a mobile device, this might be a very good choice. You can change the maximum pixel width, save your page orientation, label alignments, and any validation levels. Having set up and laid out your form, we're in layout mode currently. There's several tabs up on the form designer here which allow us to set other options. For example, field rules allow us to show or hide fields based on a previously selected value in another field. You just simply add rules, and as you can see here, the first rule is to show the address in an insurance form when the please choose is not no. So these fields will show when another field is set. This is an example of a conditional field rule. Several are in existence in here. You can add more, and you can change the order as well. Sometimes one of these field orders can overwrite the other, so you want to make sure that your order of your field rules is appropriate. If you need to do database lookups, you can set up lookup rules. You will have to have set up an existing database prior to creating a new lookup rule. For example, in this case, we don't have a data source because we never set one up. That's done in the management area. We'll take a look at that in a moment. You can pre-build your own error messages. You can add custom error message rules based on inserting variables with conditions, etc. The really great thing about forms is you can customize the theme and look and feel of that e-form. A very easy to use interface is provided by Laserfiche. Out of the box, they give you quite a few default themes. Choose your favorite theme, select it, and you notice that the form itself changes, and you can see how the background, the form title, and fonts, etc. are changed. If you like what you see and you want to save it permanently for use with other forms, go ahead and click on the Customize, add any changes you might need. Once you've customized that image, you then can click on the button at the very top to add to Customize Themes, which then gives you a list of custom themes, as we can see here. These forms are a type of web page. In fact, they are a web page. And being such, we can actually customize it quite a bit using CSS, which is Cascading Style Sheets, as well as JavaScript. Laserfiche on this form has actually built quite a bit already for us. In this case, we have some CSS that's helping display a few of these fields on one line. As we can see, anything that has the class of 2 per line will display that field on a single line. You can even see how it's working here. We notice that we have our different forms, different fields here, employee information with date, first name, and last name. It's all vertical. However, if we were to take a preview, you'll notice that some fields are side by side, first name and last name, email and employee ID. That's CSS in action. That's a preview, so we'll go ahead and close that tab. So that is CSS and JavaScript. Anytime you make a change to any of this information in CSS, you'll want to hit the Save button and probably preview as well. Error messages also need to be saved. Lookup rules need to be saved. If you are looking at field rules, any changes to those field rules need to be saved as well. Otherwise, you'll not see them in functionality. Laserfiche Forms actually will remind you to save that when you try and navigate out of this area. So that's how we design a form we build both a form itself and then insert it as part of a process diagram. The form itself needs to be used by users, so we need to actually go and assign rights to this form because the designer initially has the only rights to this form. At this point, if we need other users to be able to run the form, we need to add them as users, and that user can be selected as one of three types: a submitter, business manager, or process admin. A submitter is somebody who can start that form or react, or in other words, reply to that form or approve or deny on a form. Business managers can move that form to or reassign it to another user, and process admins can build and edit this existing form and the processes itself, but just for this particular process, not any others. Once the access rights have been set, go ahead and press the process options. This form is not available for anybody to use until you come into the process options stage and publish this form. The basic publication is simple. Just hit publish, hit save, and you're good to go. However, you might want to change the URL link and the name of the form. Laserfiche generates a random set of characters here on the end so that the URL is kind of unique, but you can type in any URL name that you want. That can be shared out once you've saved it to via email or a copy of that link, and you can even use embed code to embed this form in another web page. For the instance itself, when it comes to a user in their task box, the instance name will be displayed, and it's using tokens from the system. We can see here that there is a process name token. We've got an instance ID, followed by a colon, and then the initiator display name. You can modify this. The tokens are available both from Laserfiche Forms itself and the field variables on the form. So you can use that to name your instance name. There are summary details available as well, and we can add them to our order when you select them. Clicking each one adds them to our order. Click and drag to reorder the selected variables. Each form should have a process time zone, and you can also set an optional email notification if the process terminates. At this point, hit save, and your form and its underlying processes are ready for use by your staff. Once you've done that, you might want to also set some overall process error messages, but that again is optional. If we go ahead and look at our start process, we do have to save that. Let's save our process. Notice how the web page complained. So we now have our 2018 shot registration process. If we go to our Start Process tab, we should see that is available. These gold stars are favorites. Each user can mark their processes as favorites. They will be sorted to the very top, and all the others will be sorted alphabetically below those. You can change your view of these start forms. It's nice to be able to see what the form looks like. So if you change from grid view to thumbnail view, it's really helpful to figure out what form you have, and then go ahead and start that process like we saw earlier. This concludes our training video on Laserfiche Forms by Cities Digital. Thank you for watching, and have a great paperless day.